Hi, good morning. Ed Bixby here from the Global Green Burial Alliance, and this is Spotlight Now. This morning, we are with Shari Haber, founded Great Goodbyes LLC to help people increase their death literacy and proactively plan a meaningful farewell. Shari is the former communications executive who spearheaded PR teams that launched many consumer technologies and leading digital brands. Shari regularly gives talks about death and dying, an attempt to normalize contemplation of our mortality, and conversations about our final wishes with our loved ones. She works in person with clients or virtually anywhere via Zoom. Shari was certified as a conscious dying coach by Conscious Dying Institute. She is a trustee of the Funeral Consumers Alliance of Northern New Jersey and a member of the New Jersey Healthcare Quality Institute Conversations of Your Life Task Force, the Association of Death Education and Counseling, and the Alliance for Senior Services of New Jersey. Welcome, Shari.
Hi, Ed. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here today and providing these services to the community. I'll start off to ask you to learn a little bit about why you got involved in advanced planning and what was your inspiration for the work in Great Goodbyes.
Honestly, I sort of backed into the whole field because I was a communications executive, as you mentioned, and I was collaborating on a television script about baby boomers. And as we were looking at different themes about baby boomer lives, I had recognized that baby boomers were rewriting, reimagining how they were aging. And it occurred to me, and I don't know why, I wondered if they were reimagining how we're dying. So I started to do some internet research and I was amazed at all these different things that were going on so under the radar that were seemingly such a better way to die from the experience I had with death in my own life, that I began to pursue it and we wrote it into the script. And then I said to my partner, rather than just writing a show, and who knows if we would be successful with the show, it was our first attempt. I said, we should go into this business because people don't know about this. There's an opportunity here. And it would be a great service to people to open their eyes to how they could die better. And she wasn't interested, but I was. And I began my journey from there.
Absolutely, that's wonderful, and you're absolutely right, Shari. Probably 95% of our present population in the United States don't like to talk about death and really don't understand what the options are until the unfortunate experience of a loved one passing, and then they start to explore that. So it's really good work that you're doing. And if you could tell our viewers why it's important to prearrange and what are the benefits of pre-planning financially, we know spiritually and emotionally. It makes sense all around. But if you could explain a little bit of that, that would be great.
Yeah. After going through the conscious dying course, I began to add the spiritual and emotional elements to how I could help people prepare. But right off the bat, from a practical standpoint, death is a major event. It's inevitable. Dying is inevitable, but dying badly isn't if you do something about it. And that it was framed from a quote I saw. I turn it around and I say, dying well isn't inevitable because you have to do something about it. And what you should do is prepare in advance and also become educated so that you know your choices. I feel it's not enough to tell people you should make a plan in advance so you've taken care of all or as many of the hard decisions that there are to be made at the end of life so that when the time comes, you could be present and you could receive the love of your loved ones. You don't have to be busy telling them where your bank accounts are and what your insurance policy beneficiary and all that kind of stuff. You could just be present and in the moment, and you're not leaving so much for your family, your loved ones to figure out after you're gone, or like I say, to have to guess while they're grieving. It's the worst time to make all those decisions. So from practical standpoint, I say it's not morbid, it's adulting. It's practical to make all your arrangements in advance. And financially, just like anything else, if you have to buy things at need, at the moment, in a rush, you're going to pay top dollar. You can't shop around. If you do it in advance, you could shop around and find what really works for you and your budget.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. I tell people myself that prearrangement is there for your loved ones. Like you had just verbalized. It really truly is to make life easier on them so they can be in that moment. Um, so, Shari, have you seen a shift in what people are choosing when it comes to prearrangement options?
Um, I see glimmers of it, and from my conversations with people in the business, so to speak, I hear about increasing interest in green burial in particular, both from the cemetery standpoint and from the funeral home standpoint. And I've also met with some of the um, alternative disposition companies out west in Seattle, et cetera. So it's starting, but I still think people are adverse to even contemplating their mortality. So I still think there's a way to go to advise people of what their options are. It's not enough to make a plan if you don't know all your options. How could you possibly, let's say, include water cremation as your preferred body disposition choice if you don't know it exists and it may be legal in your state, etc. So to make a good plan, you need good education. And I still think there's a lot of that needed.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And transparency and process as well, in my opinion. People hear something and they say, wow, that sounds lovely. But if you don't understand the entire process, you may not, like you said, if you're not educated, you may not realize what you're choosing. So it is important to really understand what's out there. Um, what would you consider the consumer mindset when they're choosing to prearrange? I mean, are you finding it's for themselves or is it for their family and loved ones? Like when you have people come to you, what seems to be their main driving force, I guess?
Um, I work with a lot of people who are adult children of, and they may be seniors or baby boomers themselves, but they're still the child of an elderly parent. So if they're said child and they have been given all the responsibility for the parent, they recognize there's a lot of gaps to what they know and what the parent has expressed. And therefore, they're looking for help to help their parent, but then they turn around and may say, I'm a parent too, and tomorrow's not promised. I should do this type of work for myself. So I see, especially adult children of elderly parents, as a big focal point for where a lot of this is happening, in my experience.
No, I agree with that as well. I feel like I deal with a lot of the children. Now they're caring for their parents. The parents typically know what they want, and a lot of times they allow the child to be the one that voices that. So that sounds correct to me as well. What has your greatest reward in this journey been as an advanced planner? Do you have something that what makes you feel good about what you're doing?
I think when I see that when I first talk to people, they'll ask what this is all about, what I'm doing, and they'll recoil. Like, first of all, they don't know if they heard right. Am I doing deaf education, what have you? And then when they let me continue, they'll often remark that, wow, this is really important. This is really needed. And they start to get more and more comfortable with just acknowledging the inevitability of death and that it is something like all major events that you're better off if you prepare in advance versus just showing up on the day and expecting everything to go as you would want it. So when I see people more comfortable in having the conversation, because frankly, my conversations with people are not just about death and dying well, it's how when you recognize there's a hard stop, you also could live better. You also start to consider, what would I need to feel that my life is complete? It's not necessarily a travel list, a bucket list. It's more projects or saying you love someone or different ways to enrich your life and give it more meaning as you go forward. So I love the duality of that, that they see that they could die better, but they also could live better as well.
Absolutely, well put. I agree with that. Let me ask you, we're in a perfect world, we can't see into the future, but what would you like to see, or what are your goals and aspirations, let's say, for My Great Goodbye? Let's say if we were looking 5 years ahead of now, where would you like to see, yourself within what we're doing and how it's affecting the consumer?
Well, just like when I was trying to write a television script and I was interviewing different people I found online who were starting to do what I now do. Um, they were very excited that I was attempting to write a television script about it because they felt something with video, like TV, like a movie, that would really drive the messages home about how you could personalize your farewell, how you could die well, how it could be better. There's no one way to die, and it should be the way that resonates with you, not cookie cutter, those sort of things. So while there's a lot of books out, and I may write one myself, I would like to be able to work with people who are creating different cultural projects that very gently weave in the notion of dying well. I think I talk to a lot of people who are involved in living well, in health at the end of your life, aging well, that sort of thing. I think the more the conversation is normalized, and I think video is a powerful medium in which to have those conversations, the better they could be. So I hope to be a conduit to get a lot of the information into those art forms or cultural events.
That's wonderful. I believe you'll do it. That's the key to this. A lot of us, myself included, and sounds like you too, we weren't born into the profession. It was something that caught our eye, and then we became passionate about it. So, it's kind of great to lead the way, and that's what you're doing. For our consumers, just because, I know where you're located, but I'm not sure where you can provide your services. Are you just locally based in North Jersey, or can you provide services outside of that area?
Well, certainly, I had initially dealt mostly with people that were driving distance from where I am located in northern New Jersey, but through the power of Zoom, I could go anywhere. And I just, if I'm working with people out of state, I'll make sure that I know the legal requirements and what's available in that state, because as you know, things are
Mhm.
not necessarily available everywhere. And even where they're legal, they're not always available. So you have to go a little further in my research, but I am able to work with anyone in any state, really.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you're absolutely right. With the power of technology, it makes it possible. So that I'm glad to hear. I think our consumer viewers are going to like to hear that. I hope that they consider reaching out to you with any questions they have. The Global Green Burial Alliance would like to thank you for joining us today, Shari. Our audience can learn more about Shari and Great Goodbyes by visiting mygreatgoodbye.com. Is there any parting words, Shari? I don't want to miss anything. If I didn't ask you something important, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I tell people that when it comes to advanced planning and making their final arrangements, they should start by thinking about what's most important in their life. And then I tell clients about all the options they have to reflect those priorities and values in how they say goodbye, which is what they want done with their body, what kind of funeral or memorial service they want, and how they want to be remembered and their legacy. So it starts with what's important to them, and then I follow and give them information so that it could be reflected in their goodbye. And by the way, if they do like the idea of green burial, but they want to be buried in the family plot with everyone else of their ancestors, or they are going to use the funeral home that the family has always used, I get it. But I could work with them to green their traditional service so that they minimize the environmental toll it takes.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Shari, from My Great Goodbye. This is Ed Bixby from the Global Green Burial Alliance, and this was Spotlight Now.
Thank you.